Ready? Can you hear me all right? Is this on? Is this thing on? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Keegan, and I'm here to present some information to you on my dissertation, the FARC dissertation. And I have to be very honest with you. I just presented something very similar to this at the largest educational conference in the world, which was about 2 weeks ago in Chicago, Illinois. And I wasn't half as nervous then as I am now, because frankly, I don't care what they think. But I definitely care what you think, because you're actually the people who understand this. So let me say a couple of things before I show you any of this. Number one, I am in education, so some of this may seem like a little bit, oh, geez, what the hell is she talking about? But hopefully I'll explain it well enough that it won't be too boring. And the second thing is I'm really hoping that none of you are surprised by any of this. Because the problem is where I work in education, people are astounded and absolutely blown away by the fact that people could actually have real-life interaction online and have real community, a sense of community and literacies. And that's actually what I do. Literacy, when we think about it, usually we think about writing on a page or something like that. And the family of research and the family of theory that I belong to sees literacy as something that's all-encompassing to your life. So I wanted to set that forth first, that literacy in and of itself is simply being able to use semiotic systems, and literacy is a way of constructing community. Now, I promise I won't talk about literacy ever again in this, really. I know it's a little boring, but I just wanted to get that out there. So I'm going to leave some time at the end of the presentation for you to tell me exactly what you think about this information and this research. Some of it may, like I said, seem a little boring, but 4 years in grad school has compelled me to think that I have to show it to you. So, I teach at DuVo College. I teach teachers how to be teachers, and one of the things that I have noticed is that many teachers coming into Teachers College have absolutely no idea about technology in general. I mean, they have a very difficult time understanding how to use an overhead projector, much less understanding communities online and ways of interacting online and the kinds of skills, the life skills you learn online. So it's pretty much a fact that in education and somewhat outside of education, that interactive digital media is often viewed as socially destructive. We all know about that idea of the nerd in his mother's basement eating Cheetos and drinking Mountain Dew. And that's something that that's something that people, researchers like me, are trying to counter. Because honestly, as we move further and further into using digital means of communication and information sharing and community building, it's only going to become more and more important. Starting in the 1970s and 80s, this view began to be applied to video games. And I want to talk about that as a, gosh, this is a little annoying. I want to talk about that as a little side note for a second. So, internet communities have been around since the 1970s. And weblogs or news filters are becoming a more and more influential means of conducting information sharing and having communities built online. Impact of MySpace and Friendster and LiveJournal and now Facebook in education has been huge. You know, you've probably heard about all those stories on MSNBC and whatnot. You know, my daughter, she had a MySpace account, and some predator, you know, whatever. So we're having this sort of boogeyman of surrounding technology and technological communities come up not only in general social spaces, but also specifically in education. Okay. So I wrote my doctoral dissertation at the University of Buffalo, and the dissertation was titled, I submitted this with a funnier headline, Multiliteracies and Communities of Practice at FARC.com. And if you are a FARCer or you know anything about FARC, you'll recognize that I submitted this with a funnier headline. The whole idea of this dissertation was to show the stuffed shirts in education who are quickly falling behind the times as far as online communities are concerned. That a place even like FARC, not someplace nicey-nice like Dig or Slate or any place like that, but a real online community concerned with boobs and beer and laying around and getting laid is really some place that people can, in fact, learn stuff that is important to their lives. Oops, what did I do? For those of you who don't know what FARC looks like, this is what it looks like up until 2 days ago. And we are going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, because that's a very important part of online communities and ways of making people feel as if they belong. If you're not familiar with this, on the 25th, Drew and company completely remodeled FARC. And there's been a bit of an uprising because it's A, slow, and B, really white and bright and hard on the eyes. But when I conducted my research, this is what FARC looked like. And if you're not familiar with it, obviously on the far left there, those are the links to stories. This is a news filter, obviously. The tags are a FARC-specific thing that tells you what kind of story you're going to be reading. The headlines are obviously made up by the submitter, and they're supposed to be funny. And then, you know, the comment thread is right over there, and the ads and the boobs and everything else. So the point of this dissertation was to establish places like FARC as non-traditional sites of learning. And the idea is that modern American classrooms are moving further and further away from reality in terms of digital skills. And sites like FARC are places for people to learn and connect and have real social interaction. Again, I said that literacy and social interaction are tied as far as my educational background is concerned. But if you know how to do certain things and you know how to behave in certain ways on a website like FARC, you are more likely to become accepted into that community. And you can learn the things that that community has to offer. What we like to watch, read, and listen to and participate in determines who we are and how we define ourselves. And the family of research this particular dissertation belongs to says that literacy and identity are connected. So the ways in which you express yourself, the ways in which you use semiotic systems and reuse semiotic systems is intimately tied with who you are. The governing theory behind this research postulates that all learning is social. So learning doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with other people. And there are people called more knowledgeable others and called less knowledgeable others. And all learning is a mediation or a mitigation between the people who know more and the people who know less. And you can be a person who knows more or less at any given time. All right? Additionally, learning has to happen. If it's social, it has to happen in communities. And there has to be apprenticeship and legitimate peripheral participation. And in my dissertation, I don't quite get into it here, legitimate peripheral participation encompasses lurking. So websites where people don't communicate directly, there is still a form of participation. When you jump from lurking to kind of posting now and again, to kind of posting a lot, to really posting, to getting to know the site memes, to going to the parties, and that's a move from legitimate peripheral towards the center of actual participation. Here's some relevance to educational research. I'm sure you really don't care, but that's fine. Basically, education's about 30 years behind the times. There are other areas of non-traditional learning, other sites of non-traditional learning that are being studied by people in education too. Constance Steinkuhler and her husband, Kurt Squire, are looking into video games, and I had mentioned that before. There's a gentleman named James Gee who is at the University of Wisconsin-Madison who wrote a book in 2003 called What Video Games Have to Teach Us About Learning and Literacy. And it's an excellent read. It is not at all theoretical. I highly encourage you to get it. It's by Paul Grave. And it's basically, he takes a game, a first-person shooter like Doom, and says even the most, what the media would consider disgusting of video game, the most violent, the most depraved of video game, teaches us something fundamental about how to communicate and how to participate in communities. There's, like I said, Steinkuhler and Squire. There's Gee, there's Turkle, online identities. There's Finders on girls' magazines like Cosmo. And there's Jenkins on fan fiction. So this area of research has been around for a while. The relevance to you and the internets, all your teachers are wrong. You actually were doing something worthwhile when you were going online. I swear to God. You weren't wasting your time. Yeah, I'm just trying to convince the teachers of that. So let me just quickly get into something that might be a little bit important. Ooh, feedback. Might be a little bit important for you to understand some of the data that I'm going to present to you a little bit later. There's a concept called design with a capital D, and it's by these guys in the London group. James Gee is one of them. And basically, the concept of design states that you have a semiotic activity. You're working with symbols, whether they're visual symbols, audio symbols, symbols on a page, symbols on a screen, and you interact with those symbols in a way that makes meaning. But because you are who you are and you have innate, personal, different experiences from everybody else, the meaning that comes out of you is going to be different than, say, the meaning that comes out of me or comes out of anybody else. That notion of design, available designs, the sorts of semiotic tools you have to at your disposal, designing the process of actually taking those things and kind of mixing them up in your head and making new meaning, and then the redesigned, the new products that come out of that. So here are some of the participants. This is general information. I'll speed through this. This is the general stuff about my dissertation, how I did it, what I did. I interviewed 14 people on the site. I did it mostly through email. I did do some phone interviews. I did go to 2 FARC parties. I had this kind of data. You're all like, yeah, that's great, fantastic. But this is the part that I'm compelled to show you because I went to graduate school. This is the data collection that I did. And this is the kind of stuff that the site owner told me about why he started FARC. A little known fact is that FARC was almost an Curry website database instead of a news filter. I'm serious, because Drew's fond of Indian curries. But he wanted to do a couple of different things. And this ties in specifically with what it means to be in a community. If you have a leader or a person who founds a community or starts a community who wants to do a certain set of things, the community for the most part is going to be successful, especially if it happens to be an online community that's open 24 hours a day, that you can access all the time, and that a lot of people are on all of the time so that you have that opportunity to interact. And as those of you who know about FARC know, that's a pretty good description of FARC. So Drew wanted a virtual pub, he wanted a business opportunity, and he wanted to create his own world. The other thing is he was instrumental in creating 3 kingdoms. And so when he was done with that, he decided he wanted to do something else. So here's some quotes for him, just basically about world creation and diversity, why he wanted to do this. He feels like it enriches him. He likes talking to these people. And this, the reason I'm showing this to you is because it shows up later when it comes to the actual people who visit the site, people like you. Okay? He wanted an intangible that was real for other people that they could go to and create an experience, and it was really cool. So he wanted to have a site for people who maybe didn't feel as if they had any place else to go, or for who were looking for ways of accessing information that they didn't have immediate access to. He makes his income through FARC, and he sees FARC as a small community. I'm not going to read this all to you, but this is all important because it will show up later. It's a virtual pub. One of the things that I found out was FARC was created in part because Drew kept sending out funny links to all of his friends, and it just was filling up people's email addresses. So he decided to have a site where people would simply go to and find out all the funny crap that he was looking at on the internet. Hello? And this is the participant data. This is why they come to FARC, what they do when they get there, and why they stay. I don't think that's me, but that's fine. A lot of times people find the humor to be the thing that attracts them. A lot of times people find that information exchange is the thing that attracts them. They want to come because they want to see what other people have to say. Always hearing the same opinions and the same arguments is nothing but collective ignorance. So there are people who are coming to hear alternate opinions from of themselves. And a sense of community. Here's where we're moving into what this presentation is here to inform you about, or at least reinforce, is that FARC really is an online community. It really is a community that people can access and participate in and learn things about. This one was a big one, a negotiated space for democratic interaction. Not only does FARC allow people to hang out, but it allows people to have what people call, what other researchers call, democratic interaction, and that's important in a democracy. I know sometimes it doesn't really feel like we live in a democracy anymore, but really, this is where we're finding it. This is where we're doing it right now online, and that's the important part of why we need places like FARC. Some thread data. These are the kinds of things that I found. The different kinds of interaction. I'm going to focus mostly on the visual ones because they're a little bit easier to read from that distance. I'll just go through these. I can see that this is boring the crap out of you. So, in terms of design and the redesign, on FARC I found that the redesign of political texts as an expression of identity is something that happens, and the using of the site as a democratic space in which to engage others on political and social differences is something that